My name is Stanwix, and I've worked in natural building for the best part of 15 years, predominantly as a design and build contractor. And I'm sorry, I always have to read the intro because it's the only bit I ever forget. I love hempcrete, I love clay, and I love solving construction challenges. When you gain experience with particular materials through failure, triumph, or time, you get pulled into other areas of construction. So I also assist self-builders. There's one here today somewhere. He's out there. Architects and engineers when they're working with natural materials, and I also produce, import, and sell building materials. But predominantly, I'm a builder, and that's where my passion lies. My journey inside Earth began at HGMatthews, where I worked for 3 years, and I finished that about 4 years ago, I suppose, and predominantly focus on avoiding doing labour-intensive things like that, and instead using machinery, earth blocks, and other methods to bring earth building to a new audience. So I'm just going to talk about a few of my projects, past projects, which highlight this. Some of you here actually have worked on them, so sorry you'll know all about it. But here we go. So at HGMatthews, I was pretty much set free by Jim, who's up there in the corner, to experiment with their clay and their straw. So we made lots of varying density blocks out of the clay and the straw. The one in the front there is a light earth block, clay and straw. The middle one is, I suppose you call it light hemp earth. It's hemp and clay, and the other one is a hempcrete block. So we made these blocks, and then we tested them at HGMatthews to see what we could do with them. And the light earth blocks were great. These ones were more like an insulation bat rather than a block because they were so light. So we built an office and we stuck them between the studs. And their thermal conductivity was very low. It was like 0.05. But they were, I'm going to go back to that. They were difficult to make, and at the time we didn't have the machinery that could make them on scale, but I think that has changed slightly recently. So we looked at dense blocks, and at the beginning we made them with a little sort of a notch in them, so you didn't have to put mortar in the perp joints. And we really liked them. We built a new toilet block at HGMatthews, and they were fantastic. And this is the same toilet block. This is a photo taken in January 2018. And those of you who were at the Brickyard this week, I don't know if any of you went and saw this toilet block, but that is just a base coat clay render with clay, straw, sand. And it isn't even, I didn't even put 2 coats on it. For some reason, we didn't get time. And it's only just now needing properly replacing. There's a square that's fallen off it. But the building inside is fine, the blocks are fine, it's just it needs another coat of render. And there's a very, very small overhang, it always gets rain on it. So it is surprising how tough these materials can be. So the other products we looked at, this is clay powder. So all the waste products we crushed and we put them through a sieve that's in the picture there. And we made clay powder, which you can make clay plasters, clay mortars, all sorts of things with. And they still make this now, and it's a really, really, really nice clay for making a clay plaster. Other things we did was a clay straw board, and that was very exciting. But again, to make that on large scale was just too expensive, too much machinery, but put it on the park it on the bench for later. But again, 25 mil thick, straw and clay, and it was a fantastic board. Hempcrete blocks were even more exciting for me, but I'm not allowed to talk about that too much. Roland says no. So we thought the dense blocks, the strocks as they call them, they're made from the waste clay they dig through to get to the brick making clay and the waste straw from their farms. So we took that forward to testing at the BRE, and they've been fully tested to the British standard for masonry, which means engineers can engineer with them and we can make them properly on site and building regs can be okay with it. So this is the bit about, building faster with blocks, is the fact that they're dry, and now we can engineer with them, and now we can build houses with them. So structural earth, we took that through to kind of what you'd say live tests, and this is a garden office nearby. Sit it on a masonry plinth, and we built a little cabin for a client just to see, just to get to know them, so we can give other people, to tell them about our experience, give them advice. And they're great. We found out you can drill straight into them with big screws, and which means you can drill these posts in and plumb and run your strings off that really, really easily. We built it in the winter, too cold for lime or cement when we were building this, but actually, as long as you could mix the clay up, it was perfectly fine to build with. You did just, however, have to cover it over at night from potential of rain. And again, the lintels just screwed straight into it. And we managed to get a nice thin joint because they were quite regular. I'm going to skip through this bit pretty quickly because it's about hempcrete. So we put the roof poles over. These poles are from the neighbour's garden, and then Hessian straight on top of the poles, stapled down, and hempcrete poured straight on top of the Hessian. So there's no plywood deck or anything like that. It's essentially a hempcrete roof deck. Inside we did a strock floor, so the foam glass you can see at the bottom, and then very important, the damp-proof course comes down and to the bottom of the clay pour layer, and then laid the blocks straight on a lime mortar with a clay mortar between them. We were going to do a poured floor at this point, but the client liked the look of it so much we kept it. We plastered it, and then we oiled the floor. That's the cabin there, painted with clay paint. And they came up really nicely. They came up like flagstones. We oiled them with linseed oil and then beeswax on top. And they're really, really tough, really, really strong, which gave us the idea for cutting them into little tiles if you had a screeded floor. So it's the strock itself cut into 20mm sections and then laid. This is a sample for a customer, but they were laid as a floor tile. So there's 2 flats in London with these floors. And on the buildings tour, there's a building called the Surge Hill Project that we've got a floor like this. And then the big live project, Bellingdon Village Nursery, which you'll get to see as well on the tour. This was built by HGMatthews. This was the big test for the earth blocks. So we've got a rubble trench foundation, brick plinth, and then start the blocks above the DPC. Hempcrete again. Hempcrete insulation. And there you can see all the big roof structure all sits on these, and they're 160mm wide. They're not even the full size one. 300mm of insulation and a brick skin on the outside, and that's now has a green roof on it as well, so that those blocks taking a huge amount of weight. And if any of you have been there or heard about it, it has a central dome as well, so it's really worth going and visiting it. And that's, again, the same mix with the strocks, but the earth blocks, but their special shape for producing that dome. So after I finished at HGMatthews, I started thinking about earth as insulation, because I do a lot of hempcrete, which I'm going to try to stop saying now. And that's insulation, basically. So this is where I thought I'd test it on my barn. So this is the roof structure of my barn at home. And I left the old laths on because they were oak and nailed very well into the little rafters, and I didn't want to take them off and risk breaking the rafters. And I got this machine. This is a hempcrete spray machine. And so you put a liquid in here, and it tips it over and pumps it from this thing here. It's an agitator or a pan, and it pumps it up to a nozzle. And have I got the picture of? Yes, and the hemp goes in this separate box here. So that's a picture of the clay slip in the drum. So that is clay powder and water, which gets pumped to the end. And the hemp, dry hemp, goes in this box here where it gets blown to the end. This pipe here carries dry hemp right up to the person on the lance or wand or whatever you want to call it. This carries a slurry, so it could be a lime slurry or a clay slurry. And this carries switch wires and compressed air. So that all gets pumped up to the person, or the hemp gets blown, but it all goes to the person at the end, and it comes to this. So you get your dry hemp coming out through the middle, and then the slurry gets sprayed with compressed air through those nozzles at the hemp. So the hemp's sort of twisting through the air, and then the slurry's spraying at it, and then it mixes in the air and sticks to the wall, or wherever you're spraying it. So this is a Hempcrete spray machine, and this is what it's been used for, and this is what it was designed for, but I thought I'd try it with clay. So I stapled this cardboard to the underside of the roof. It's like stapled to the old roof battens. And then I piggybacked with this 2x2 on top of each rafter. And this was just for me to stand on as I did it. And then I stood there on those and sprayed the insulation down at the roof. And that shows it there nicely, the cardboard that I put on the underside. Once it was finished, I scraped it all off, and I got a lovely flat roof. Well, not flat, but a lovely smooth roof like that. That's my dad. He's 60-something. I've got a bad back, and we did that in a week quite fairly easily between us, and that's what he was doing most of the time. So that just shows how easy it can be. You know, you could do it with hands, you could do it with lots of people, you could do it with buckets, but you could also do it with your dad. Then on the underside, 24 hours later, I pulled the cardboard off, and that's what I was left with, a nice substrate to plaster onto. This is just showing the Hempcrete wasn't enough insulation, and I've gone with 2 skins of 50mm corkboard, which will keep the undulation of the roof, and it's the lightest board that I could think of because my rafters were tiny. And that's the finished roof underneath the new tile battens. And so it's the original tiles of the barn's about 300 years old, and it's the original tiles went back on, except the broken ones. And the broken ones, I bought another machine for, which we'll see in a minute, which crushed them up and mixed them with clay and straw and plastered them on the underside. So they spent however many years on top of the roof, and now they're broken and they're on the underside of the roof. And it's quite nice because you've got clay as the finish, clay as the insulation, and fired clay on top of that as the roof finish. It's just a couple more shots of it. And if you visit, my barn's also on the visit list tomorrow, and you'll notice that I like textured plasters. And the tiles went into the mixer as in buckets of broken tiles. They weren't crushed and sieved and this and that. They just went in as buckets of broken tiles. So then I thought about site processing. This is in North London, Wolves Lane, a community project. And that's the mixer I'm talking about there, which a lot of you would have seen during the week. It's got 2 big wheels that go round and round and crush everything up. This is the clay we had. So it's a straw bale, 3 straw bale buildings. This is the clay we had, and that's the sand that was left on site. I need a clicker thing, don't I? The clay is sticky, it's claggy, it's got little bits of roots in, it's got little bits of this in, it's got big stones and small stones. You wouldn't want to try sieving it, you'd have to dry it first, and this is where the big mixer comes in. It just crushes it all up. So I put water in first, it makes it all into a nice slip, crushes all the stone, and then the straw and the sand go in afterwards. And then you've got each mix, 3 barrows per mix, 6 mixes a day, happy builder, no dancing on a tarp, which I'm not dissing, but it's a lot quicker. If someone's paying you to do a job, this is how I'd do it. I should say it wasn't just me, I've got Brian as well, but he doesn't like to be photographed. And then it wheelbarrows into the building and tips on the tarp, no packaging. No plastic, no paper, no waste, just there it is, and those are the walls, the straw bale walls it's going onto. Another use for this, once I got this mixer, I started thinking of all these uses for it. So this was a dividing wall in a 16th century or 15th century building, a little hovel in Padbury, in sort of just a bit north of here. So it's a dividing wall between two houses, which weren't two houses before, so it's only sort of this thick, and they can hear each other's televisions and stuff like that. So, and obviously in need of repair. So all the layers over the years came off, the wallpaper, only a tiny bit of gypsum actually, and a tiny wincy bit of cement, so it wasn't too bad, and then layers and layers and layers and layers of clay plaster that had gone on over the years, back to the original. And I tried not to take too much of that off. So I wetted up the little areas where it was worst, and mixed up this mix, which was worked really well. 1 clay, 3 hemp, 1 straw. And I put this on by hand, even though I'm supposed to be using machines. And there we are, fixed up all those areas. And then Hempcrete again, was specified as the sound insulation between the two cottages. And so the only mark this will leave behind is a couple of screw holes every third course. So a very non-invasive way of improving the sound insulation. They were cut first with a saw and then shaped round with the nail float and left a lovely curvy wall. And then the base coat plaster, all this stuff that I took off before, I stuck it all in the roller pan mixer, crushed it all up, only added water. The wallpaper was in there, that all disappeared. Everything I pulled off that wall went in there, mixed it all up with water, and plastered it straight back on the wall. So you've got sort of 300 years of history mixed up and slapped back on the wall. And then the top coat, which was the thing with the mixer, once you have one, you can think of all these different uses. And then I managed to find a very local clay to do the top coat with, and so that's a top coat clay plaster over it. So then I thought, what if I take 2 machines to site? So this was like the A-team turning up, and this is Lee over there. This is his place. This is like what I'd been dreaming about. So so a big hole in. There was a digger as well, obviously. Digger digs a big hole in the garden, about 20 meters from the building. That went in the roller pan as slip. So just a load of water with the clay, smashed up all the stones, left it in there for half an hour, maybe a little bit more. Poured into the back of the spray machine, pours over into that agitator that you saw before. And Annie and Jack, Adita Builds now own the spray machine, this spray machine anyway. And she's spraying slip on the straw bales just before the plaster coat. And that slip was half an hour before was out in the back garden. And then switch the nozzle over, attach the hemp box, and this is the one that's spraying the hemp and clay. So it's building out here, she's building out the window reveals, and we also went over any bits of timber that, timber studs that in the wall that didn't have straw on, and filled out all the any big sort of holes in the straw. And yeah, it's like the clay was just 20 meters away, and we processed it to a point where it can go through a very complicated spray machine, and everything in that slip had to be less than 2 millimeters to go through that machine. And it's created this lovely material which is insulating, it's clay and it's hemp, and it's going to be perfect for plastering over. So I thought that was pretty good. I've done 2 of these now, and hopefully I'll do one that doesn't have the straw bale perhaps, and it's just a hemp light earth build. Oh, I must be getting to the end, am I? Oh. So that was the end, but this is a little bit after it. That should have been 25 minutes exactly. I wanted to say quickly, 3 minutes. So clay wall is a plaster I came up with over the years of making different plasters for different places, testing it at different people's houses, getting other people to use it, sending it on courses like last week to see how people find it. And it's a very good plaster. And it's easy to use, it's robust. It has 3 ingredients: clay, straw, and chalk. And the thinking behind it was to create a revenue for Ibuki, the charity, for their, what are they called, Roland? Core costs? The stuff you can't get funding for, so like the bookkeeper and things like that. So 50% of the profits go to Ibuki and other earth building causes. We've had excellent feedback about the plaster. It's available, although the website is coming soon. So if you do want, people who were on the course were asking me about it, the plastering courses last week. So if you do want any, that's my email down there, and I can get you some. And that's it going on the wall. And as you can see, not only is it good plaster, but it also makes you happy. So, so yeah, thank you for listening.